And before I sentence you, I'd like to say a few words about your arrest record. What the hell?
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that shit up, B.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Man, you want some too? You better wrap it up.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time to wrap up Dark Knight's Death Metal, the big DC event for 2020. Obviously, it did conclude in 2021. This was the DC coming out guns blazing after the pandemic shutdown. Dark Knight's Death Metal was beefed up after Dan Didio was unceremoniously shown the door. Generation 5 was obviously shrunk down to Future State, which we're reading right now. And Scott Snyder altered Dark Knight's Death Metal to kind of coincide with that and to kick off Infinite Frontier, which is going to be starting in March. So this ended up being a very important comic book event. I believe commercially, DC Comics will tell you it was a huge success. And I think they made a lot of money. They shipped a lot of comic books. As far as a storytelling venture and an enjoyable event comic, I hesitate to say that. Me personally, I think this was just so ever slightly below average, like a C- grade overall. And there are several reasons for that. There's some good stuff in here. There's some bad things. I'm going to do this like I normally do a wrap up. We're going to talk about 3 of the bigger takeaways from the event. We're going to talk about the art. Then I'm going to talk about the 3 high moments of the event, the 3 low moments of it, and then that'll basically do the video. Now, before I get into the details about Dark Knight's Death Metal and my thoughts overall on the event, I do want to say if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoy this video. Give me a thumbs down if you don't. Either way, I want to hear your thoughts on Dark Knight's Death Metal. Did you think it was great? How would you grade it? Is it an A event? Is it a B, C, D? Did you give it an F? Did you like it less than I do? I did. I can't wait to hear from you guys and see what your comments are. Now, getting right into it, obviously the biggest takeaway from Dark Knight's Death Metal is things have changed. We are in a new era of DC Comics. The Omniverse is here. It was mentioned specifically as the Omniverse in Dark Knight's Death Metal number 7. Everything matters. Now, if everything matters, does that mean nothing matters? It's quite debatable on how this is going to affect DC Comics continuity moving forward. Obviously, we know it's different. It's changed. But it could be a good thing. We could literally go to any point in time, tell a story with whatever character. It doesn't have to fit neatly within the continuity. Not everything is going to be told linearly, and I think that could be very exciting. Also, it could be easily fumbled. We kind of know some ideas on how they're handling thus far. Obviously, Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, has ascended. She is going to be somehow in Valhalla. We'll see that in the Wonder Woman regular series. But there's a new team in town that are kind of protecting the cosmos or looking at the cosmos to protect Earth Zero from all the threats that are out there. You've got Wally West, Mr. Terrific, Martian Manhunter, Vandal Savage, Talia al Ghul, and Lex Luthor, I believe, are the ones that are managing this new space station that's behind the moon. Obviously, there's a lot of big ideas here, and that's it. I mean, it's the Omniverse. It's a new age of DC continuity. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We shall see. But it is a thing, and it's because of Dark Knight's Death Metal. Now, another big takeaway from this is I have this takeaway about a lot of comic events, and it's not just DC Comics, Marvel Comics. It is the gluttony of tie-ins and just extra frivolous material. And there was a lot of issues with that, specifically with Dark Knight's Death Metal. Here on the left, this is the original checklist that we got from Scott Snyder, I believe his Twitter account. And you can see in there's 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 issues that are supposed to make up the event. In the end, there ended up being there ended up being 24 or 25. A lot of these were superfluous. They were unnecessary. They didn't really tie into the main story. It was just add-on material for people that really enjoyed the event. And I think that's great. But there were other things in here that were specifically tied into the main story, and you had no idea. Now, obviously, in the skip month, we did get Dark Knight's Death Metal, Multiverse Zen, Trinity Crisis, and Speed Metal. And essentially, those are 3 chapters of the main story after Dark Knight's Death Metal 3, moving out of it. and we got the story of what the Lanterns were doing, what the Trinity were doing, and what the Flash family were doing. And that was actually exciting. Those were really good and very impactful to the overall mainline story. But before that, we got all these like origin stories. They were really short. It wasn't really worth reading. Then after that, there was a bunch of more tie-ins so eventually I just dropped off of the tie-ins, ended up apparently missing some key information. I'm not going to go back and read it now that I've gotten through the event. And I think that was, a bit of a failure on DC editorial. Probably Scott Snyder is the event lead on that, to not tell people what was important to read if you want to read the main story only. Because there was more than just the 7 issues in that skip month. There were other events, or there were other books in there that were important. They never really made that known. And the other thing I would say is, you can tell a lot of the stuff was being added in, and Scott Snyder mentioned this specifically, so he was transparent about it, that if the initial sales of Death Metal were good, that they were going to be adding on some comic books, some anthologies. Because they were added on late, they always had a good main team for whatever the A story was, whether it be Josh Williamson, James Tynion, Scott Snyder here with the last stories of the DC universe. He had a Jeff Lemire in there as well, but then you get in there, it's like Cecil Castellucci, Mariko Tamaki, Gail Simone, Mark Waid, Christopher Sabella, and you just look at the creative teams, they were not very inspired. There was a glut of extra stuff, extra tie-ins, and it was not clear what was really important. And another big takeaway from this is apparently like the last hurrah of Snyder and Capullo, basically DC's power creative team for the last, are they probably the best-selling creative team in the last decade in the Big Two. I can't imagine who would have actually done better just on a per issue basis. Like, these guys have done a lot of work. Obviously, they started out with Batman. When you think about their work in Batman, what's more influential or kind of lore building than their work with Court of Owls? Like in their generation, I don't think anyone can even touch them, just as far as a Batman creative team. Obviously, after that, they did do Dark Knight's Metal, which was a huge success. That one had some great tie-ins. That was one of the reasons that the tie-ins that we got with Death Metal were so disappointing, because the tie-ins on Metal were great. Those origin stories for the Dark Knights were awesome. You could tell that there was a lot of thought put into those, and it was really appreciated. And obviously, that wasn't all Snyder Capullo, but obviously they had a big part to play in that. Batman Last Night on Earth, I think that was that the second or the third Black Label book that they put out. This was the last chapter, or the last story of Scott Snyder's Batman. Said he was never going to really return to the character. I think that was done pretty good. I think a lot of people enjoyed that. Obviously, Dark Knight's Death Metal. These guys have sold a lot of comic books. They've made a lot of money for DC Comics. It sounds like they're going to be doing some creator-owned stuff for DC moving forward, but we're not going to see them on capes anytime soon. They've done a remarkable job. DC Comics is definitely going to be missing them, hoping that somebody can maybe replace them as the new kind of power creative team. I imagine they're hoping that's James Tynion and Jorge Jimenez, but we shall see. Only time will tell. These guys have done great things together. They're obviously good friends. They're going to continue to work together, but it's not going to be on Batman. It's not really going to be on capes, at least in the immediate future. Now let's kind of get into the art, which I do think, for the most part, was excellent to spectacular. We're talking, these were beautifully illustrated comics, especially the ones that Scott Snyder announced initially. The 7 issues of Dark Knight's Death Metal, and those three tie-ins in the skip month. Now, I do think Greg Capullo might have been a little bit underutilized, especially in the first 6 chapters of the Dark Knight's Death Metal. There was a lot of talking in this event, and it was a lot of heroes moving from one place to another, discussing what happens, and moving to another place with a little page or two of action, discussing what happened. And I don't think we got to see the best Greg Capullo had to offer. I think he took the script that he had and did the best that he possibly could. But in that last issue, he absolutely got to go balls to the wall with the big war that going on, the cosmic level fight going on between Wonder Woman, the Batman who lulls, and it was really spectacular stuff. It was really a reminder of just how fantastic Greg Capullo is and what a talent he is. as far as visual storytellers go, he's a genius and definitely one of the best of his generation. Some of the other highlights were Eddie Barrows on Speed Metal. His art, that one absolutely kicked butt. Francis Manupal was on Trinity Crisis. He did some amazing work when he was showing. There's like a 3 consecutive spreads of Swamp Thing that I just were fantastic. Really reminded me of some Alan Moore era Swamp Thing. Maybe not as far as who Swamp Thing is, but the visual layouts and the kind of the storytelling you were getting there. So I think across the board, for the most part, the stuff that was supposed to matter looked like $1 million. Obviously, when you have that many anthologies, you get a lot of different artists. When you get the Dark Knight's death metal trade with the important stuff, it's going to look great because they had great artists and they were at the top of their game. And you know, DC Comics absolutely hit it out of the park as far as art with this event goes. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that I would call like the high points. Now, my favorite part of Dark Knight's death metal, I think everybody knows this, I've talked about it more than once here on the channel, is Jarro. Obviously, in, was it Justice League No Justice, we saw Starro pass away. We got a new version of the character, Jarro. And Jarro is in love with Batman. He wants Batman to be his dad. He has fantasies of being Robin to Batman. As far as I'm concerned, whenever Jarro was on the page, and it wasn't near enough, during Dark Knight's death metal, he was the scene stealer. Every time he was in there, he's hilarious. He's an endearing character. Me personally, if you make a Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman and Robin with dead Bruce Wayne and Jarro, like going through the Dark Multiverse kicking ass, I would be all over that series. I want that more than anything, Scott Snyder. If you could do one thing to make me happy, that would be it. So I really love the relationship between Jarro and Batman. I think it's hilarious. And like I said, scene stealer. The other really high point was that skip month when we got Speed Metal, Trinity Crisis. I thought these two were the best issues by far of Dark Knight's death metal. Speed Metal in particular, I think, was the best issue of the bunch. Joshua Williamson really giving a lot of TLC and love to Wally West, who definitely deserved it. I was a little bit let down seeing Wally's total part to play in the finale of this, but that is neither here nor there. I'm not going to hold that against Speed Metal, Joshua Williamson, Eddie Barrows, what they did there. Obviously, Scott Snyder did do Trinity Crisis, which we saw Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman go to 3 different Crisis events and have to harness energy into Alfred boxes, which was his lame name, but we're not talking about that. And then Francis Manupal was on the art on that one, and I thought it was also stellar. So those were the 2 peak moments as far as storytelling for Dark Knight's death metal, because there were so many big ideas going on during the event. When they broke it down into those individual parts of the quest, I thought it was easier to consume, and it was just a lot more fun and enjoyable, if I'm being completely honest. The other thing that I would say is a high note on this, and I think was executed well, Wonder Woman felt like the star of the series. Greg Capullo made Wonder Woman look like $1 million. Everything looked bad in Dark Knight's death metal, and that, obviously that's by design. It's supposed to be like a nightmare world, and in this nightmare world, there was a very angelic looking character, and that was Wonder Woman. She stood out from everything else. I think that was all by design, and I think it was handled very wonderfully. It was great seeing an event with Wonder Woman up front. Hopefully, she'll be getting some more love in the future and being treated like the A-list characters that she really is. Obviously, I just did a video of that on the channel, and so I enjoyed that. Not every event has to be fronted by Batman. And this one was fronted by Wonder Woman, and I think it was excellent. Now let's get to what I would call the 3 low points of the series. You knew this is basically what you're going to get. I do not like the Batman Who Laws. I do not like the Batman Who Laws coming out of Dark Knight's metal. I like the Batman Who Laws miniseries that Scott Snyder did, but I didn't like the character. I thought the miniseries was good, but I did not like the character still. He's so overpowered before this event that he's obnoxious and he's no fun to read and no one could ever defeat him. And by the end of this thing, he's so smart. that he tricks Wally West into powering up, and he tricks the Trinity into powering up, and he becomes so powerful he just defeats Perpetua rather easily, and he's gonna defeat the entire hand force. It's like, I'm so tired of the Batman Who Laughs. I really hope the character is dead. I'm told it's not. That we're going to keep seeing this character. Please just let it be in Tales from the Dark Multiverse. Do not bring this stupid character back into the mainline DC anything. I had Batman Who Lulls fatigue a long time ago, and it's even worse after this event. I hate that character. Now, coming in a close second is Robin King. Not only did I think this particular one-shot was the low point of the entire event, I thought it was the worst issue. It was completely... He's essentially the Batman Who Lulls 2.0. He's smarter than everybody. He's got a spray for this. There's always a compartment in the stupid utility belt to defeat every hero in the world. Why would anyone ever be able to beat him? It's just lazy storytelling. It's just like the Batman Who Lulls. It's 3 fifth graders sitting at the lunch table saying, you know what would be cool? What if Bruce Wayne actually murdered his parents? And he became the ultimate Robin. Like, oh man, that would be dope. Can you trade me your milk for a cookie? It's so cliche. It's so boring. The Robin King is not nearly as obnoxious and as hateable as the Batman Who Lulls, but he will be there by the end of 2021. I already can feel that character is going to be treated essentially the exact same as the Batman Who Lulls, and I will absolutely loathe the character even more by the end of the year. And the other thing that I found disappointing was he set up the stakes, and this is on Scott Snyder. You set up the event. You crammed so much stuff in here. You made the stakes so enormous. You overpowered the Batman Who Lulls to such a degree. You played up the power of the hand to such a degree that literally, no matter what, at the very end, either you have to live under the Batman Who Lulls essentially rule in blissful ignorance, or you have to die. There's no two ways about it. And then it just didn't happen. I thought you could see that. I'm tired of it. This is just a cop-out, boring ending as far as I'm concerned. It didn't make sense within the story. It didn't build up to this. It just happened. And that's how it always happens with these big events. When you build the stakes up and you build the villains up to be so powerful, they can't be defeated. There's literally no way that the heroes can win. And you just go, well, they didn't. Everything turned out okay. Well, good. Probably should make sense within the story. It didn't make sense. It was a convoluted story. And the ending, he did not stick the landing on the ending as far as I'm concerned. The art was good, but the storytelling wasn't. Did not enjoy the ending at all. So that's basically my wrap-up of Dark Knight's Death Metal. The big event for 2021 for DC Comics. Obviously, I'm giving this a C-, just a skosh below average. I think the art was impeccable throughout. It was a convoluted story. If you keep trying to top yourself and if you think it's got to be bigger, eventually it becomes so big and so ridiculous that it even stops being enjoyable. And there were so many moving parts in this. Like, you couldn't just sit back and enjoy the fun like you can in King in Black that's happening over at Marvel. That's a nice, fun popcorn comic book. You just throw your popcorn in your mouth and you see this crazy stuff happen and it's fun. This has got so much stuff that it ceased to be enjoyable as far as I was concerned. But that is my wrap up. Those are my feelings for Dark Knight's Death Metal. Obviously, we're moving into a new era. Future State will be the next event wrap up here on the channel. And then we're going into Infinite Frontier. What does the future hold for DC Comics? We shall see. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on Dark Knight's Death Metal in the comments section.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.